My husband gave me 5 minutes to leave our house in a Colorado blizzard because his mother said I had stolen $160,000 and his dead father's signet ring. 90 minutes later, a county sheriff returned my phone in a sealed evidence bag and showed him the photograph his mother never knew the banking app had taken. But before the sheriff arrived, before the forged contracts were spread across our dining table, and before my husband finally understood what his mother had planned for both of us, Daniel Mercer stood in our doorway and looked at me like I was a stranger. "Get out, Claire." Snow blew past him and scattered across the hardwood floor. I stared at the man I had been married to for 14 years. "You know I didn't take that money. My mother found the transfer request on your laptop. Your mother was searching my office." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's what you're worried about?" Behind him, Vivian Mercer stood beside the fireplace, wearing a cream cashmere robe. Her silver hair was perfectly arranged, her face pale and wounded. She pressed Daniel's father's empty jewelry box against her chest. "I never wanted it to come to this," she whispered. I looked at her. "Yes, you did." Her eyes flashed for half a second. Then the trembling returned. "Daniel, please, don't let her make this uglier." Daniel stepped closer to me. "Where is my father's ring? I sent it to be resized for your birthday." "Mom called the jeweler. They said you picked it up yesterday." "I didn't." Vivian lowered her gaze. "I saw the box inside Claire's travel bag." Daniel looked at the suitcase beside the stairs. "It was mine, but I hadn't packed it." Inside, officers would later find 2 sweaters, my passport, $5,000 in cash, and a one-way airline reservation printed in my name. At that moment, however, Daniel saw exactly what his mother wanted him to see: a wife preparing to disappear. "I can explain all of this," I said, "but you need to let me call Ben Harper at the bank." Vivian touched Daniel's arm. "She's trying to delay you." "I reported the transfer myself," I said, 3 days ago. Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "That's convenient. It's documented. Everything with you is documented." "That's because I run the finances for your company." "Our company," he corrected. Vivian's mouth curved slightly. It was almost a smile. Daniel Mercer Construction had started with 1 truck, 3 employees, and more debt than contracts. Daniel built the houses. I built everything that kept the company alive: payroll systems, compliance, insurance vendor, controls, and financing. By our 10th anniversary, we employed 62 people. Daniel was the face of the company. I was the reason the face didn't end up in bankruptcy court. But that night, none of it mattered. Vivian had placed a folder on the kitchen table containing a pending transfer of $160,000 from our payroll reserve into an account called Stone Pine Holdings. My name appeared on the authorization. So did Daniel's. Both signatures looked real. Only one of them was. "Let me see my phone," I said. Daniel looked toward the living room. "It's staying here. Vivian took it from my office. She found it beside the transfer documents. She planted them." Vivian gasped. Then she began to cry. Not loudly. Vivian never performed loudly. Her talent was making everyone else feel cruel for forcing her to suffer. "I moved into this house because Daniel asked me to," she said. "I tried to treat you like a daughter. You moved in 4 months ago and started opening our mail. I was helping. You called our vendors pretending to be me. I was protecting my son." "From what?" She lifted her chin and looked directly at me. "From waking up one morning and discovering his wife had emptied everything he worked for." Daniel flinched. Vivian saw it. So did I. Daniel's father had lost his first business when a partner forged his signature and drained the operating account. Daniel had been 17. He remembered their cars being repossessed and the bank changing the locks on their house. Vivian had spent 14 years telling that story whenever Daniel questioned her judgment. I saved this family once. I know what betrayal looks like. I will never let it happen again. She had found the oldest fear inside her son and built a home inside it. Daniel, I said, look at me. He didn't. 14 years, I continued. Have I ever taken $1 without telling you? You never told me you contacted a divorce attorney. I didn't. Vivian opened the folder and removed a printed email. The sender appeared to be me. The recipient was a family law attorney in Denver. The message said I intended to liquidate my interest in the company, move the money overseas, and leave Daniel with enough debt to keep him fighting for years. It was detailed, cold, convincing, and completely fake. The email address is wrong, I said. Daniel frowned. It has your name. The letter after the C is an L. It's designed to look identical in that font. Vivian shook her head slowly. Oh, Claire. What? You always think you're the smartest person in the room. No, I think you were counting on Daniel being too angry to look closely. Daniel slammed the folder shut. That's enough. No, it isn't. I said enough. The room went silent. Even Vivian seemed surprised by the force of his voice. Daniel pointed toward the open door. I need you out of this house while we figure out what you've done. It's 12 degrees outside. The guest lodge is half a mile down the road. The lodge has been closed since October. Then call someone. You're holding my phone. Vivian glanced at it on the mantel. Daniel followed her eyes, but didn't move. Give me my coat, I said. Vivian folded her arms. We couldn't find it. My boots, also missing, she said. She knew exactly where they were. Weeks later, police found my coat and snow boots locked inside the cedar chest in Vivian's bedroom. Daniel looked uncomfortable, but embarrassment was not enough to overcome his anger. You can come back tomorrow, he said, after the bank opens. You're throwing me into a blizzard over documents you haven't verified. I'm asking you to leave. You locked my accounts 10 minutes ago to protect the company. You took my phone to protect the evidence. You're keeping my coat. I didn't take your coat. No, I said, looking past him at his mother. She did. Vivian began crying again. Daniel stepped onto the porch and held the door open. Go. I looked at my husband one last time. Once you close this door, the question won't be whether I forgive you for believing a lie. His expression hardened. What does that mean? It means you're choosing to put my life in danger before you've asked me a single fair question. I'm not doing this with you. No, I said. You're doing it to me. I walked into the snow wearing office slacks, flat shoes, and a thin navy cardigan. The door closed behind me. Then the porch light went dark. I had known Vivian Mercer for 16 years. For the first 12, she lived 3 states away in Arizona, which made loving her much easier. She sent expensive birthday gifts, mailed handwritten Christmas cards, and called Daniel every Sunday evening. After Daniel's father died, she became more involved in our lives. Then, 4 months earlier, she called Daniel from a hospital in Phoenix. She said she had fallen. She said she was afraid to live alone. Daniel flew out the next morning and brought her home. For the first 2 weeks, Vivian acted grateful. By the 3rd, she was rearranging my kitchen. By the 4th, she was sitting in Daniel's office during company calls. Your wife doesn't include you enough, she told him one evening. Claire handles the financial side, Daniel explained. Vivian smiled at me. That's a great deal of power for one spouse. It's my job, I said. A wife shouldn't need a job title inside her marriage. Daniel laughed because he thought she was joking. I didn't. A month after Vivian moved in, I noticed payments to a consulting company called North Vale Strategies. The invoices were vague. Market development, capital restructuring, project acquisition. Each payment was just under $20,000, low enough to avoid the secondary approval threshold. The company address belonged to a mailbox store in Phoenix. When I asked Daniel about it, he looked genuinely confused. "I thought you hired them." I didn't. Vivian entered the kitchen while we were speaking. She heard the company's name and dropped a teacup. It shattered across the tile. "Are you all right?" Daniel asked. "Just clumsy." She looked at me as she said it. That night, someone logged into our accounting system and deleted the vendor profile. They didn't know our software kept an immutable archive. The deleted invoices totaled $318,000. The account receiving the payments belonged to a real estate investment company managed by Vivian's nephew, Eric. I didn't confront her. Confronting someone before you understand the entire scheme only teaches them which evidence to destroy. Instead, I called our bank's fraud manager, Ben Harper. "I need you to flag every transaction connected to North Vale or Stone Pine Holdings," I told him. "Do you suspect an employee?" "I suspect someone with access to Daniel's personal information." "Does Daniel know?" "Not yet." Ben was silent. "Claire, that's dangerous territory." "I know." I also contacted Maya Cole, the attorney who had handled our company's partnership agreement. Together, we created a temporary dual authorization rule. No transfer above $10,000 could be completed without separate biometric approval from both Daniel and me. Vivian didn't know about the biometric requirement. She only knew she needed to remove me before the final transfer was attempted. 3 days before the snowstorm, she changed tactics. Daniel came home from a job site and found her sitting alone in the dark. "What happened?" he asked. Vivian held up her phone. "I heard Claire speaking to someone. I was upstairs at the time." Vivian played him an audio recording. My voice said, "Daniel can't control the company much longer. Once the documents are signed, I can make the decisions without him." What I had actually said to Maya was, "If Daniel's shoulder surgery causes complications and he can't control the company's daily operations, the documents need to specify that I can make payroll decisions without him." Vivian removed 14 words. She let Daniel hear the edited version twice. Then she said the line that finished her work. "I survived this once with your father. I won't watch another woman destroy my son." Daniel didn't confront me immediately. Instead, he began observing me through the story his mother had created. When I worked late, I was hiding something. When I spoke privately with Maya, I was planning a divorce. When I updated passwords, I was locking him out. When I asked about North Vale, I was preparing a false suspect to blame. By the night of the storm, Daniel no longer needed proof. He only needed permission to believe his fear. The snow became heavier as I moved down the driveway. Our nearest neighbor, Tom Alvarez, owned a cattle ranch almost a mile away. His barn was closer than his house, and I knew he kept an emergency heater in the equipment room during calving season. I walked toward the faint red light on the hill. After 10 minutes, I couldn't feel my fingers. After 20, snow had soaked through my flats. I kept thinking Daniel would come after me. A pair of headlights would appear. He would pull alongside me and say he had made a terrible mistake. The road remained empty. When I reached Tom's barn, the side door was locked. I pounded on it. No answer. I tried the equipment room window, but my fingers were too numb to move the latch. "Come on," I whispered. "Come on." My vision began to narrow. Then I heard a mechanical click above me. A camera rotated. Tom had installed motion-sensitive livestock cameras after losing 2 calves the previous winter. At 10:37 p.m., the system sent him an alert showing a human figure collapse beside the barn. He called 911 before he even recognized me. Volunteer firefighters arrived 11 minutes later. They wrapped me in heated blankets and carried me into the station. Captain Rosa Medina crouched beside me. Claire, can you tell me who left you outside? My husband. Did he hurt you? Not with his hands. Do you need police? Yes. What do you need them to do? I forced my eyes open. Call Ben Harper at Alpine Federal Bank. Tell him authorization code 719 black. Rosa stared at me. Is that a password? It's a duress code. At 10:46 p.m., someone inside my house attempted to transfer $160,000 into Stone Pine Holdings. The request came from my phone. The person holding it knew my 6-digit banking code. Vivian had watched me enter it 2 weeks earlier. What she didn't know was that Ben had enabled silent fraud capture. After 3 failed facial verification attempts, the app activated the front camera automatically. It took 4 photographs. The first showed Vivian's forehead. The second showed her looking down at the screen. The third showed her holding my driver's license beside her face. The fourth showed Daniel standing in the background with his back turned. At 11:18 p.m., Sheriff Lena Ortiz arrived at the fire station. She listened without interrupting as I explained the invoices, the fake vendor, the transfer request, and Vivian's access to our documents. Do you have evidence outside the company system? She asked. Maya has a cloud archive. Can your husband access it? No. Can Vivian? She doesn't know it exists. Lena looked toward the snow-covered windows. Your husband may still be a victim of fraud. He is. And he put you outside without a coat. He did. Those can both be true. I know. That was the part Daniel would struggle to understand later. Vivian had deceived him. But deception did not place his hand on the door. It did not stop him from giving me my phone. It did not make him switch off the porch light. At 11:52 p.m., 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled into our driveway. Daniel opened the door before they knocked. Vivian stood behind him. Is this about Claire? Daniel asked. Sheriff Ortiz showed him her badge. Mr. Mercer, is your wife here? No. Where is she? She left. Did she have transportation? Daniel hesitated. No. A phone? No. Winter clothing? She refused to. That's a lie, Vivian interrupted. Claire stormed out before we could stop her. Daniel turned toward his mother. She didn't storm out. Vivian blinked. I only meant, you said she left before we could give her a coat. Daniel's voice had changed. It was the first loose thread. Sheriff Ortiz stepped inside. We need to speak with both of you concerning an attempted wire transfer and possible identity theft. Vivian placed a hand against her chest. Identity theft. The sheriff opened a tablet. This image was taken at 10:46 tonight. Daniel stared at the screen. Vivian was holding my phone and driver's license. That doesn't prove anything, she said quickly. Claire asked me to approve something before she left. Daniel looked at her. Claire said you took her phone. She was confused. You said you found it beside the documents. I did. Then why are you using it? Vivian's eyes filled with tears. I was trying to see what she had done to you. Sheriff Ortiz swiped to the next image. The banking app showed a pending transfer to Stone Pine Holdings. Do you recognize this company? She asked. No, Vivian replied. Daniel said nothing. The sheriff placed another document on the table. It was a business filing from Arizona. Stone Pine Holdings had 3 managers. One was Vivian's nephew. The second was an investment broker currently being investigated for securities fraud. The third was Vivian Mercer. Daniel sat down slowly. Mom Vivian looked at the sheriff. I need my attorney. You're free to call one. This is Claire's fault. Daniel's face tightened. How? She has always hated how close we are. That isn't an answer. She was trying to separate us. Where is Dad's ring? Vivian stopped breathing for a moment. Sheriff Ortiz noticed. So did I, she said. A deputy searched Vivian's bedroom with her consent after she insisted there was nothing hidden there. He found my coat and boots inside the cedar chest. He found Daniel's father's signet ring wrapped in tissue at the bottom of her cosmetics case. He found a second phone taped beneath a drawer. And inside a locked leather portfolio, he found 17 pages of Daniel's signature written again and again. Some were poor, others were nearly perfect. The final documents were the worst. A corporate resolution transferring Daniel's voting authority to Vivian during his upcoming shoulder surgery. A personal guarantee placing his construction equipment behind a $600,000 loan. A medical power of attorney declaring that Daniel had shown signs of cognitive decline. And a statement supposedly written by me, admitting that I had manipulated my husband and stolen company money. My signature was forged beneath it. Daniel read the first page twice. Then he looked at his mother. You were going to have me declared incompetent. Vivian's performance disappeared, not slowly, instantly. Her shoulders straightened, her tears stopped. I was going to protect what your father built. I built this company, with my family's name.
Claire built it with me.
Vivian's mouth hardened. Claire took you away from us. Dad has been dead for 6 years. He would be ashamed of what you've become. Daniel looked like she had struck him. Vivian continued. You let that woman control your money, your company, your home? That woman is my wife. She was preparing to leave you. You wrote the email. Vivian said nothing. Daniel picked up the medical power of attorney. You forged my name. You would have signed eventually. You stole from the company. I borrowed money. $318,000. The investment was supposed to triple, and when it didn't, Vivian glanced at the papers. Daniel understood. You were going to borrow against the company to cover it. I was fixing a temporary problem by framing Claire. Claire was already suspicious. She would have destroyed everything. She tried to stop you from destroying everything. Vivian's face twisted. You're still choosing her. Sheriff Ortiz stepped between them. This conversation is over. Vivian was arrested shortly after midnight for attempted wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, and unlawful access to financial systems. The charges would later expand. Northvale Strategies had been created using the identity of a deceased family friend. Vivian had redirected company payments for nearly 8 months. She had also used Daniel's personal information to apply for 2 private loans. Stone Pine Holdings was weeks away from foreclosure on a failed luxury development outside Sedona. Vivian needed the $160,000 transfer to delay the foreclosure long enough to obtain a much larger loan against Daniel's business. She didn't only need me blamed, she needed me gone. At 1:14 in the morning, Daniel arrived at the volunteer fire station. I was sitting on a cot with heated blankets around my shoulders. My wet clothes had been placed in a plastic bag. A medic was checking the circulation in my feet. Daniel stopped in the doorway. Claire, I looked at Captain Medina. Can you give us a minute? She nodded, but stayed close enough to intervene. Daniel approached slowly. His eyes settled on my swollen hands. I thought you went to the lodge. You knew it was closed. I wasn't thinking. That isn't a defense. I know. Do you? His face crumpled. Mom has been arrested. I heard. She forged everything. Yes. She took the money. Yes. She edited the recording. Yes. Each answer became quieter. Daniel sat in the chair beside me. I am so sorry. Which part? All of it. That isn't specific. He closed his eyes. I'm sorry I believed her. That's one part. I'm sorry I didn't let you explain. Another part. I'm sorry I took your phone. I waited. He looked down. And I'm sorry I made you leave without your coat. You didn't make me leave. What? You threw me out. Daniel flinched. I thought you had betrayed me, and I told you that I hadn't. The evidence looked real. So did 14 years of marriage. He began to cry. I had seen Daniel cry only twice before, when his father died and when our first pregnancy ended. For one dangerous second, my instinct was to comfort him. Then I looked at the heated blankets around my body. I remembered the porch light turning off. Claire, please come home. No, just tonight. No, it's your house too. It was my house 2 hours ago. It still is. Not while you're inside it. His expression changed. Are you leaving me? I don't know yet. Please don't decide this tonight. I'm not deciding anything tonight. That's the difference between us. He lowered his head. What am I supposed to do? Find somewhere else to sleep? Daniel moved into a hotel the next morning. Vivian remained in county custody after the judge denied her first request for release, citing the forged medical documents and evidence she had attempted to delete files while deputies were entering the house. Maya and Ben spent the following month untangling the financial damage. The $160,000 transfer had never left our account. The $318,000 stolen through false invoices was partially recovered from Stone Pine's frozen assets. Our payroll continued. No employee missed a check. Daniel sold 2 undeveloped properties to cover the remaining losses without putting the company at risk. Vivian accepted a plea agreement 9 months later. She received prison time, restitution, and a permanent order preventing her from holding financial authority over Daniel or the company. At her sentencing, she looked directly at me. You destroyed my family, I almost answered. Then Daniel spoke from the row behind me. No, Mom. You taught me that love meant never questioning you. I destroyed my marriage because I believed it. Vivian turned toward him. I sacrificed everything for you. You sacrificed everyone around you to remain necessary. For the first time, Vivian had nothing to say. My divorce from Daniel was finalized the following spring. He asked for counseling. I agreed to 3 sessions, not to save the marriage, but to end it honestly. During our last session, he said I thought trusting my mother made me a loyal son. I answered, trust without judgment doesn't make you loyal. It makes you useful. He nodded. I understand that now. I believe you. Does that change anything? No. He looked down at his hands. I continued. Understanding why you hurt me doesn't make it safe for me to return. Daniel bought my share of the construction company under the formula we had created years earlier. The payment gave me enough to begin again without taking anything I hadn't earned. I moved to a smaller house near Fort Collins and opened a financial control consultancy for family-owned businesses. My first clients were 2 sisters whose father's accountant had been stealing from them for years. They apologized repeatedly for not noticing sooner. Manipulation doesn't work because victims are stupid, I told them. It works because the liar studies what you're afraid to lose. On the first snowy night in my new house, I stood beside the front window and watched the street disappear beneath white drifts. For a moment, I remembered Daniel standing in our old doorway. I remembered Vivian behind him, wearing that calm expression. I remembered the light going dark. Then someone knocked. It was my neighbor, an elderly woman named Ruth, holding a casserole dish and wearing slippers, completely unsuitable for the weather. I made too much, she said. You walked over in those? It's 20 feet. It's still snowing. I took the casserole with one hand and guided her inside with the other. Before closing the door, I switched on the porch light. Ruth glanced outside. Expecting someone else? No. Then why leave the light on? I looked at the warm circle it created across the snow. because nobody standing outside my home should have to wonder whether they're safe. For years, I believed the worst thing Vivian took from me was my marriage. It wasn't. The worst thing she took was my certainty that the man beside me would ask questions before believing the worst. But she also gave me something without meaning to. She showed me that loyalty without trust is only obedience, and love without safety is just another locked door. Daniel believed his mother and sent me into a blizzard. By midnight, the truth had returned to his house, with a sheriff's badge, a stolen ring, and 17 pages of his forged signature. But the most important evidence was never inside Vivian's portfolio. It was the memory of my husband watching me walk into the snow and choosing to close the door. Some betrayals can be explained. Some can even be forgiven. But forgiveness does not require you to return to the place where someone decided your life was worth less than their fear.